He's a little guy, but has a big man mentality.
You say you want to see me go yard, I ain't do it. I did it twice for you today.
The plays that he makes is very big. He's explosive. There's nothing he can't do on the field.
He broke the NFL, the genius who self-destructed. January 2nd, 2022, Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the New York Jets. Third quarter, Antonio Brown, Super Bowl champion, 7-time Pro Bowler, the most technically perfect wide receiver of his generation, stands on the sideline, pulls off his jersey, rips off his shoulder pads and sprints shirtless into the end zone tunnel. He was just done.
Antonio Brown, that's Antonio Brown without his uniform, we are told, without his jersey.
The crowd doesn't know whether to cheer or call a wellness hotline. His teammates stare. Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback alive, watches in stunned silence. Cameras catch everything. Within minutes, it's everywhere. That was Antonio Brown's last play in the NFL. Not a celebration, not a championship wave, a disappearing act on national television. Here's what makes it devastating. This was the same man who caught 136 passes for 1,834 yards in a single season.
Airing it out, going deep. He's got it to Antonio Brown!
The same man who hauled in 17 catches for 284 yards in one game. So absurd that NFL films could barely explain it. The same man who scored a touchdown in Super Bowl 55 after every team in the league had given up on him.
There's the fake, there's the pass, and there's the catch for the touchdown, Antonio Brown.
He broke the NFL, the genius who self-destructed, and to understand why, you have to go back to where the machine was built and where it started to crack. Chapter 1. The machine is built. Antonio Tavares Brown was born July 10, 1988 in Miami, Florida. His father, Eddie Brown, nicknamed Flash, played wide receiver in the Arena Football League. Antonio grew up watching his dad run routes under artificial turf ceilings, catching passes in indoor arenas where the sidelines were walls. Football was literally in his blood. But Flash wasn't around much. Antonio was raised largely by his mother, Adrienne Moss. He bounced between homes in Miami, watching his father build a career from a distance, and decided early, whatever it costs, I will be better. That chip didn't develop over time. It was installed from the start. What followed wasn't just talent, it was obsession. Antonio Brown became a student of the game the way other kids study video games. Route trees, release mechanics, separation angles. He filmed himself in the off-season. He ran routes alone late at night, long after everyone else had gone home. He didn't just prepare, he studied how to destroy defenders. College programs didn't see it. Florida, Miami, FSU, none offered scholarships. Following high school, Brown spent a prep year at North Carolina Tech, then arrived at Central Michigan as a walk-on in 2007. He finished with 305 career receptions, 3,199 yards, and 22 receiving touchdowns.
One man to beat is the punter Schulte. Antonio Brown will go the distance. Touchdown, Central Michigan. 75-yard return for Antonio Brown.
Scouts saw a small school receiver. Brown saw a grudge to carry forever. Draft day, 2010. He waited through 6 rounds. Pick 195. The Pittsburgh Steelers finally called. He was the 28th wide receiver selected. He made sure to remember every one of the 27 taken ahead of him. His rookie season was invisible. 16 catches, 167 yards, mostly special teams duty.
All it is. Roethlisberger gonna go deep.
But the Steelers staff noticed something in practice. First in, last out. Running routes against air when no one was watching. Studying film for hours after mandatory sessions ended. The hunger was undeniable. In 2011, he broke through with 69 catches and 1,108 yards. His first Pro Bowl. In 2013, 110 catches, 1,499 yards, 8 touchdowns.
Out of trouble. Roethlisberger looking for it all. Touchdown!
The NFL had a new problem. Antonio Brown had become unguardable, and he hadn't yet reached the surface of what he was capable of. Chapter 2. The Peak. Unguardable Sundays. Then came 2014. Brown posted 129 catches for 1,698 yards and 13 touchdowns.
And back, big rush, throws the pass down the field. Antonio Brown He's still on his feet.
Led the NFL in both receptions and receiving yards. He was the best receiver in football, and then he got better. What made him so dominant at his peak went beyond athleticism. It was a form of technical mastery that left defensive coordinators without answers. Watch Brown at the line of scrimmage and you're watching a chess grandmaster executing a plan the opponent hasn't read yet. Against press coverage, his releases were startling. Rapid hand fighting, slipping contact before a corner could get set, gone before the jam could happen. Against zone, he didn't just find soft spots, he manufactured them. Against man coverage, he ran routes in layers, pacing the defender at 80%, lulling them into false confidence, then detonating out of a break with an acceleration burst that defied his 5 feet 10 inches, 185-pound frame. Most receivers lose a step at the stem of a route. Brown accelerated through the cut. Cornerbacks described covering him as tracking a man who was constantly shifting gears. Just when you thought you had leverage, he was already somewhere else.
Blitz on. And a one-handed grab.
He played bigger than his size over the middle, absorbing contact and holding on. His sideline awareness was borderline supernatural, toe-tapping in spaces that seemed physically impossible. And after the catch, he ran angry. Every yards after catch attempt was a declaration. He was, in the truest sense, a universal weapon.
And this is an electrical return.
He's in molds. You know he's in molds. Wow! It's just so This is why he's one of the best receivers of all time. This is why.
November 8, 2015, Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Oakland Raiders at Heinz Field. What happened that afternoon is still hard to fully explain. Brown opened the game with a vintage toe tap along the right sideline, both feet landing in a space that had no business fitting both feet. A 13-yard catch that got the crowd on its feet before the game was 5 minutes old. Then a 59-yard bomb over the Oakland secondary, where Brown beat coverage so cleanly that the broadcast cut to a shot of the Raiders' sideline just to catch their reaction. He hauled in 10 catches for 180 yards in the first half alone. The Raiders had no answer. They tried shifting coverages. They threw double teams at him. None of it worked.
Looking for the home run ball. Deep is Brown. Antonio Brown with the grab.
At halftime, the Steelers led 21-14. Pittsburgh had 597 total yards of offense. Brown already had more receiving yards than most players manage in 3 full games.
It's a deep ball. Over the shoulder, Antonio Brown.
Then Ben Roethlisberger went down in the fourth quarter with a foot injury, carted off the field. The Steelers' season, and the game, suddenly fell to backup Landry Jones.
Roethlisberger in trouble. He's dumped. Aldon Smith gets to the quarterback.
Oakland tied it 35-35. The crowd went from euphoria to anxiety in 3 minutes. 55 seconds left. Tied game. Landry Jones, not exactly the name that inspires confidence in a clutch moment, looked left and found Antonio Brown on a short slant. What Brown did next was the signature play of his peak years. He turned that short slant into a 57-yard catch and run, exploding through traffic, breaking a tackle attempt from cornerback David Amerson, racing down the right sideline while Heinz Field came completely unglued.
It's a foot race. Antonio Brown is out of bounds.
It set up an 18-yard Chris Boswell field goal with 2 seconds left. Steelers 38, Raiders 35. Final stat line: 17 receptions, 284 yards. 0 touchdowns. He put up the greatest receiving game in Steelers franchise history, set a new NFL record for most receiving yards in a game without a touchdown, breaking a 19-year-old mark. Oakland safety Charles Woodson, a Hall of Famer who had covered elite receivers for 18 years, stood in the post-game tunnel and said, "I really don't know what to say, but wow." That was peak Antonio Brown. 17 catches, 284 yards, no touchdowns, and a game-winning play when everything was on the line. He was the only story in the building, and everyone knew it. The 2015 season was the summit. 136 receptions, 1,834 yards, 10 touchdowns. Both the catch and yardage totals set Steelers franchise records. He led the NFL in receptions and receiving yards for the second consecutive year. No receiver in the modern era had sustained that volume over back-to-back years. Greatness is a drug. and in 2015, Antonio Brown was at maximum dosage.
Once again out of the gun, Roethlisberger pulls the trigger and connects. Antonio Brown.
Christmas Day, 2016. Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens. Division title on the line. Late in the game, Brown catches a pass near the end zone and stretches, full extension, body parallel to the ground, getting the tip of the ball across the goal line in a move so physically extraordinary that NFL Films canonized it on impact. The Immaculate Extension, a play that seemed to violate spatial geometry in a city that already had a miracle moment with its own proper noun. The Steelers won, division secured, 4 consecutive first-team All-Pro selections from 2014 through 2017, 7 Pro Bowls over 9 seasons with Pittsburgh, 837 receptions, 11,207 yards, 74 touchdowns as a Steeler, the greatest receiving career in franchise history by every measure. From 2013 through 2018, he averaged over 113 catches and 1,574 yards per season, 6 straight years.
Antonio Brown!
But inside the machine, something was already beginning to fracture. Chapter 3. The Cracks Spread. Here's the truth about Antonio Brown that most people miss. The traits that made him the best receiver alive are the exact same traits that destroyed him. The obsession, the edge, the need for absolute control. What drove him to midnight route running made him incapable of accepting any structure he didn't choose. The machine had no off switch. January 9, 2016. Paul Brown Stadium, Cincinnati. The Steelers and Bengals in the AFC wildcard. The ugliest rivalry in the NFL, playing its ugliest game. Pittsburgh came in battered. Le'Veon Bell already lost for the season to a Burfict hit in a regular season game weeks earlier. In the third quarter, Burfict sacked Roethlisberger and drove him into the turf, knocking him from the game with a shoulder injury.
So the Steelers get it back. Roethlisberger then gets dropped by Burfict into the turf.
Paul Brown Stadium erupted. It felt like a war. The Bengals were winning. With under 2 minutes left, Vontaze Burfict intercepted a pass, and the stadium lost its mind. Cincinnati's bench players sprinted onto the field in celebration. 5 straight wild-card losses were over. The Bengals were through. Then it all unraveled in 60 seconds. The Bengals fumbled. Pittsburgh got the ball back at their own 16-yard line, down 16-15, with 1 minute and 23 seconds left. Roethlisberger, shoulder and all, limped back out. He drove the Steelers downfield. 22 seconds left. Third and short near midfield. Roethlisberger threw a pass over the middle to Antonio Brown. The ball came high. Brown went up to haul it in. He was airborne, arms extended, completely defenseless. Vontaze Burfict arrived from the side at full speed and drove his helmet directly into Antonio Brown's head. The hit was vicious and unambiguous. Brown didn't crumple, he collapsed. He went limp in the air and fell to the turf, unconscious before he landed.
Roethlisberger from the pocket, middle of the field, incomplete. Personal foul, a flag does come in. Went to the head.
He lay completely motionless as trainers sprinted from the sideline. Steelers assistant coach Joey Porter rushed out to check on him, a rules violation, but officials allowed it because the concern on the sideline was genuine and visible. Brown was carried off the field concussed. Personal foul on Burfict, 15 yards. Then Bengals cornerback Adam Jones, seething, unable to contain himself, drew an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty of his own, 15 more yards. 2 penalties, 30 yards, on back-to-back plays, while Antonio Brown was being attended to on the field. Chris Boswell hit the 35-yard field goal as time expired. Steelers 18, Bengals 16. The stadium went silent. The Bengals had given it away. Burfict was later suspended 3 games to open the 2016 season for repeated violations of player safety rules. Brown, who finished with 7 catches and 119 yards, was placed in the NFL's concussion protocol and missed the following week's divisional round game against Denver entirely. That hit has never fully left the conversation around Antonio Brown. For years, fans and media analysts have speculated that repeated head trauma, And this hit specifically could be a contributing factor in the escalating erratic behavior that followed. The timeline is what makes people ask. Before January 9, 2016, Brown was the sport's most dominant receiver at the summit of his powers. What came after was something different, a slow fracturing of judgment, a lowering of the threshold for conflict, an increasing inability to navigate normal organizational friction without it becoming a public crisis. Two things have to be said clearly about this theory. First, CTE cannot be confirmed in a living person. It is diagnosed post-mortem through brain tissue examination. Second, erratic behavior has many possible causes. Attribution is dangerous. Nothing about Antonio Brown's story is simple enough to reduce to a single cause. What is documented is this: Brown suffered at least one severe concussion on record, on one of the biggest stages in the sport, from a hit that was flagrant enough to draw a 3-game suspension from the NFL. He was knocked unconscious. He missed a playoff game, and the years that followed saw the pressure cracks in his behavior grow steadily wider. Is the Burfict hit the beginning of the end for Antonio Brown? Some people believe it. The timeline is real, even if the causation isn't proven. It's a question that will follow his legacy forever, and one that football, as a sport, still doesn't have honest enough answers to address. The behavioral escalation became visible almost immediately after that 2016 season. In January 2017, after the Steelers' divisional playoff win over Kansas City, Brown live-streamed head coach Mike Tomlin's private locker room speech on Facebook Live without permission. Tomlin was visibly furious in real time, his words suddenly broadcasting to thousands of viewers. Brown was fined $10,000, but the behavior told a deeper story. A player so convinced of his own centrality that team privacy rules simply didn't register as rules that applied to him. His sensitivity to perceived disrespect was extreme. Small disagreements escalated with a speed that left people confused. Teammates walked on eggshells, coaches who corrected him, coordinators who adjusted his routes, quarterbacks who questioned his decisions. All of it was processed as a personal attack. Every internal frustration became external. Every private grievance became public. In 2018, the relationship with Roethlisberger deteriorated publicly. Brown requested a trade from the franchise that had drafted him 195th overall and watched him become the greatest receiver in their history. The Steelers complied. They sent him to Oakland for a 3rd and 5th round pick. Oakland gave him $50.1 million, including $30.1 million guaranteed, the largest receiver contract in NFL history at the time.
I always felt like it was a good fit and a great opportunity with Mr. John Gruden here, Coach Gruden here. Just an awesome opportunity. Raider Nations, I'm here. I'm extremely grateful and excited to be a part of something special.
He repaid them with a training camp circus.
The AB, if AB sat here with us right now, no cameras, nothing, you would love AB. But the second he left the building, bro, you didn't know what the was about to happen.
The cryotherapy frostbite. The blistered feet photographed for the world. Camp practices missed while he lobbied to keep wearing a helmet model that no longer met league safety certification standards. He filed a grievance, lost, showed up to the facility in a hot air balloon. Not metaphorically, an actual hot air balloon. John Gruden tried to manage the situation publicly while watching the franchise's off-season investment dissolve in real time. The Raiders released Brown on September 7, 2019, before he played a single regular season snap. Within days of Oakland, New England signed him. He caught a touchdown in his only game for the Patriots.
Brady, end zone, caught by Brown!
Then sexual assault allegations surfaced. The Patriots released him after 11 days. He didn't play again in 2019. Every controversy had raised the cost of the next one until the cost became prohibitive. 2020, a full year out of the league. Then Tom Brady went to bat for him personally. The Buccaneers signed him mid-season. February 7, 2021, Super Bowl 50, Antonio Brown, the man every franchise had abandoned, lined up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Brady found him on a 1-yard touchdown in the second quarter. Tampa won 31-9. Brown caught 4 passes for 45 yards and a championship ring.
There's the fake, there's the pass, and there's the catch for the touchdown, Antonio Brown.
From unemployable to Super Bowl champion in under 12 months, the swing is almost too dramatic to be real. But the 2021 season brought the final unraveling. More off-field disputes, reports of erratic behavior with team staff, an ankle injury allegedly hidden from team doctors for weeks. Then, January 2nd, 2022, third quarter, Buccaneers versus Jets. Brown strips off his pads, his jersey, his undershirt. He runs shirtless across the back of the end zone, waving at the crowd like a man being released from a sentence. He disappears into the tunnel. Coach Bruce Arians afterward. He is no longer a Buck. And in that shirtless sprint, the story completed its arc. The phone stopped ringing. The truth. 928 receptions, 12,291 yards, 83 touchdowns, 7 Pro Bowls, 4 first-team All-Pro selections, a Super Bowl ring, numbers that belong in Canton, and yet the same obsession that built the machine detonated it. The same edge that made him play with sixth-round fire his entire career made it impossible to survive within any system he didn't control. The identity forged from rejection, the identity that said no one will ever overlook me again, became the identity that couldn't absorb a coaching note or a contract dispute without treating it as a personal attack.
Time to look and find Antonio Brown for a touchdown.
Greatness was the drug, the obsession, the chip, the control. Those weren't separate from the talent. They were the talent. Was the unraveling inevitable? We don't know. We may never know. If this story left you speechless, smash that like button and subscribe to End Zone Exposed for NFL deep dives that go beyond the highlight reels. Drop a comment, genius or cautionary tale. Hit the notification bell. We drop new content every week that the league doesn't want you analyzing. End Zone Exposed is where the truth always scores.